In the Budget Committee, as my friend Daniele Viotti said, we talk of delivering European Union added value. In the Regional Development Committee, on which I also sit, we talk about cohesion policy delivering European priorities. And here the twains meet very productively. Every euro we invest in cohesion policy delivers a return on investment of 174%. Less investment in cohesion policy means lower growth and fewer jobs.
Some people seem to think that there is nothing for us to do here anymore, but that's just rubbish. Labour MEPs will be working here on legislation until the very last day, because everything we can achieve makes a difference. And anyway, European legislation is going to affect the UK in the future, whatever happens on Brexit. Without Labour MEPs, just in the last few months, we would have had weaker targets for CO2 emissions from vehicles. That's a big win on climate change. We would have had lower ambitions on single-use plastics, and we would have had poorer prospects for creative workers. I'm also working hard to keep the door open for UK universities, students, scientists, medical researchers and creatives in the next round of EU programmes that Britain can hopefully buy into, because once again the Conservatives have absolutely no plan.
I am delighted to support this report today, particularly the 40% reduction target for 2030 for both cars and light vans. It's a big step forward in the ambition of the European Union.
The crux of the Good Friday Agreement is that it allows the different traditions in Ireland to coexist peacefully. The European Union has been key to that, because membership has meant that the border hasn't mattered for ages. It was a great achievement of the Labour government to bring peace in Ireland, and it's important that we defend it against the Conservatives who are letting the DUP tail wag the dog.
Let's not forget that the Good Friday Agreement was approved overwhelmingly by people on both sides of the Irish border. Sadly, there are some Brexiteers, like Mr Rees-Mogg in the UK Parliament, who want to pick and choose which bits of democracy they respect, and they dismiss the importance of maintaining this agreement after Brexit. To dismiss the agreement is to take peace for granted. And when you take peace for granted, you are on a very slippery slope.
It's impossible for any one MEP to effectively represent 8.6 million people, and this job is very much based in Brussels. But you have to try to stay in touch with people through local government, for example, through bodies like the Kent Labour Leaders, or report back to members and get a feel for what people are saying on the ground. One of the most important things I've been able to do is put a spotlight on the difficulties Brexit will cause in Kent if we end up outside the customs union. We hosted the Port of Dover in Brussels. I've invited the commissioners to see for themselves, and we've taken every opportunity to tell people what could be in store with the M20 as a lorry park and every country lane as an HGV sleepover. The Port of Dover accounts for 17% of the UK's trade, and it's absolutely critical for our food supplies.
As the resolution recognises, the logical consequences of the UK Conservative government's red lines are customs checks and delays at Dover and elsewhere, which will seriously impact the supply chains of UK businesses, but also businesses in the EU 27. Theresa May's red lines have boxed the UK into a corner, with a free trade agreement now the only option. This will be damaging for the EU and a disaster for the United Kingdom.
The Tory government has been utterly useless at protecting the rights of Britons living in the rest of Europe. These are people who moved to work or work for British companies in Europe and now face a situation where they're at a disadvantage and might be disenfranchised even from voting. As a parliament, we were able to improve that deal slightly for the rights of future children, for example. That's important, but we've also had to stand up for EU citizens in the UK. It will always be to the shame of our country that we were prepared to take their taxes but didn't give them a vote on their own future. Utterly shameful.
The right to vote is a fundamental right, and it is the fundamental right that itself protects democracy. We're now seeing Brexit for what it is, which is the wholesale removal of rights from individuals by the state, and they should get the right to reconsider the outcome.
Everybody should know by now that I think Brexit is a disaster for Britain, but also for progressive and socialist politics. The Brexit on offer is not the Brexit that many of the people who voted Leave wanted, and Labour cannot and will not and should not back a Tory Brexit. I came from a working class mining family, and we backed Labour to give us a better life with the opportunities that my parents and grandparents never had. I didn't come into politics to make the people I represent poorer, or to take away their hard-won rights, or to make them less safe.
Terrorism in Europe can only be fought effectively with close cooperation between national authorities. So I welcome Theresa May's commitment to the UK's continued participation in Europol and the European arrest warrant. Mrs May's Munich speech was, from beginning to end, an argument against Britain leaving the European Union. It remains to be seen quite how she intends to sell that to the Brexit extremists in her party who oppose the ECJ on ideological grounds and would be soft on terrorism.
You see, you really can't compare Westminster and the European Parliament. For example, I was one of the first MEPs to call for an inquiry into the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook very quickly scuttled out to Brussels because he knows the clout the EU has, and GDPR has demonstrated that. But at Westminster, the select committee system is really strong. And the European Parliament is yet to learn that by asking simple forensic questions, you are often more effective than through long, pompous statements by leaders. I wish we had something like the select committee system here, and hopefully that'll come in the future.
I share the disgust of the public at the abuses by Cambridge Analytica and the false propaganda that was peddled during the 2016 referendum. And I also share the disgust that many of these organisations exempt themselves for tax. And there is a clear need for an inquiry in this place, and I support that call. We need to recognise that cyberspace is public space. It isn't a techie elite anymore. And public space needs regulation of behaviour in that space. It will not do simply to say that is too difficult. We need serious legislation that looks to the future.
The European Parliament is a great platform, and I've been able to use it for all sorts of issues, sometimes just to add weight to the debate on something like online ticket rip-offs by the likes of Viagogo, for example. That was my first speech, and now we're seeing some movement, not because of what I did, but because of the debate in general. This place, however, doesn't do debate brilliantly. There's not much interaction between you and your opponent, but every so often you get the chance, and there's nothing better than putting the boot into UKIP.
And when you talk about ordinary people, let's talk about what this investment has delivered, like secondary schools in exotic places like Yorkshire, like Crossrail in London and the Thames Valley in my constituency, like the Thames Tideway Tunnel, like smart meters for 7 million homes in the United Kingdom that enables those people to save energy and pay less for their energy. Why will you not join me in backing the UK's continued involvement with this investment bank if and when we do leave?
I can't be with you this weekend, not least because it's my wife's Jane's birthday, and I couldn't do the job I do without her 100% support. It's been the greatest privilege of my life to represent Labour as an MEP for the South East, and also to work with my colleagues as part of a great team in the EPLP who really have each other's back. I will never give up on Europe, and I will never give up on the ideals of peace, jobs and freedom that it embodies. So whatever happens in the next 12 months, thank you for the opportunity and have a great conference.